Welcome to another AVID chat. David Herpel, Jack Arnold. Jack, good to see you today.
Good to see you, Dave.
If you're joining us today, we're going to talk about the values card game that you can use to elevate your financial experience. In fact, we're going to put right in here a link at the bottom. You can click on that link. You can sign up. We will actually give you this game. We think it's that important that you use to take your money life to the next level. And I would say by far, it's the most important thing you can do. So let's jump into it. One, why is it so important to understand your values before you start, quote unquote, financial planning?
I think it's kind of a start with the end in mind type of thing. If you have an idea of where you're going, it makes it easier to make decisions. We've talked so many times about this. You're kind of inundated with, what I would call tactical things. Max out your 401k, do this, do that, which are all great, but in isolation, they don't really mean much. It's taking those things collectively and applying them to something that's meaningful to you. So knowing what your values are, kind of what you're shooting for, makes sense. My values are different than the next person, and the next person, and the next person. But how I organize my life and what I do with my money, whatever tactics I choose to use, are dependent upon the values. Instead of just jumping into tactics, I can say, well, given this, here's how I'm going to organize my money. But it is hard. It's hard to say, these are my top 5, top 10 values in order. Because a lot of times we lack the vocabulary. We've talked about that before. So the card game helps to help you with some of that vocabulary and to organize it.
Right. I agree. I think it helps you define the purpose before you start figuring out the how-tos. It's really the big question is the why, and that's the core to who you are. So we've used this game. We think it's super helpful. You have a stack of cards, Jack. You want to hold this up?
Yep.
And it's very simple.
Just like
it
this.
is a list of about 100 different value words on one side. The other side is the definition to that word. And the idea is to start with either the list or the cards. We'll send it to you. You can print them off, cut them out if you want, and start to pare them down. The idea is to go from 100 to say what your top maybe 5 values.
Yeah, I think if you could get somewhere between 5 and 10, that's probably good. You'll find when you're going through this, some of these things overlap. It kind of breaks it down into not important, most important. Just to gives you a little bit of a range. But ultimately, you want to get in that most important column, something like 5 to 10, where you can, in order. I can't stress that enough. You want to put them in order because you want to be able to say, number 5 is not as important as number 1. So if they're in conflict with each other, number 1 is the thing that I'm going to choose, which we have talked about that before. So it's a good game to play. And these things change. So it's not like you put it in there and some kind of person's keeping track and you can't come back. It is good to get your mind thinking about it, and you can always come back to it if you want.
Yeah. So let's assume we play the game, we get down to, let's just say 5, we order them. To put you on the spot, can you give an example of what a value might be at the top of your list, and then also a matching financial decision, or I hate to use tactic, but that would coincide with the value?
Well, I think something like, 2 ones that I would have is like family and adventure as a value. So like adventure being like experiencing new things and going and doing things, whereas family is obviously your immediate family, maybe your extended family, really it's however you would define that. And if those things come into conflict where I can't necessarily, if I have kids or there's things going on, I can't be a super adventurous person if I have responsibilities to my family, and that's more important. I have to know that I'm choosing family over adventure or something. And it obviously could be the opposite. It really depends on who you are. You may put them in opposite order. You may not even have those on there. I don't really know, right. But those are good examples. My wife and I did this. I would suggest if you're doing it with a spouse, I would do it with a spouse. If you have a spouse, I would try to do it separately. You want to, as much as you can, not self-censor. So you don't want to say, I should put this as my value because I think somebody else should, which is difficult to do. Try to do those things somewhat separately, maybe compare and then talk about it. I think it's just something to kind of get the conversation going.
No doubt. It's funny that you said family and adventurous. The first thing that popped in my head was I used to ride a Harley all the time. And then when I became kind of the family man, I realized that that shouldn't supersede family, and the risk reward wasn't right. So I think in a weird way, looking back, I kind of did that internally. So the point here, if you're on the call, again, the link's going to be at the bottom of the screen. Sign up. We'll get you the card. We'll get you the game. It's a great thing to do by yourself, or like Jack said, if you have a spouse, a significant other, do it. Do it independently, and then let that drive some of your financial strategies and decisions.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good.
Great idea. Thanks for joining us. As always, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Pass this on to a friend and sign up. We'll get you the game as soon as we can. Jack, great to see you.
All right, see you.